Great. Well, thank you everyone for being here this morning, and you're probably going to hear a little bit of material that Sally and I have covered similar ground because, again, they're very closely aligned services that we offer, and, again, very much the same material that looked at impacts different ways. So, yes, I'll be looking at the importance of copywriting for your business. I'll be looking at what copywriting is, what it isn't, some of the common mistakes that people make on their websites, and some sort of helpful things that you can do to improve your content. So, what exactly is copywriting? Well, it has nothing to do with this symbol, and that's obviously your copyright symbol. And because they sound very similar, a lot of people make the misconception that they're somehow aligned, but spelt differently and different outcomes, of course. So writing copy, which is what we call text, is copywriting. So copywriters are responsible for not just telling the message, but for actually selling your message. It's more than simply stating facts. You actually have to develop them into a compelling call to action, which is what makes people want to follow through, engages them, and makes them want to act on what you've actually told them. Just changing the language or the words that you use can really make a difference to how you come across to people and how they interact with you. So we're going to look at how this applies to your business. And as you know, the internet, which is made up with search engines like Google and Yahoo, they're driven by content, and content is words, obviously. So we're going to look at how to use those words to make sure that your site is working best as it can on the internet and with these sites. So just like the blind man, you need to find the right words to capture attention, both with your audience and search engines, so that your potential customers can find you. And probably the very first place we want to start with this is with your meta tags. And if you're not familiar with that term, it's the little snippet of text that comes up when you type into the search engine for whatever you're looking for, and it's the little listing that comes up. And this is really key to putting in your keywords and putting in the information you need, because this is essentially what's going to decide whether or not people follow through to your site. Because if it doesn't engage with them, or it's not what they're looking for, or it's not perceived to be what they're looking for, they're going to move on to the next one. So I've got one here that a common mistake that we've seen on a lot of websites in the past, and I'm hoping we're moving away from it a bit, is welcome to our new website, and they're sort of going on about their website and how excited they are. From the name Get Def Credit, from memory they're a financial credit company, but there's nothing in their meta tag here to sort of indicate what it is they do, where they are, who they help. And if I was looking for credit, I'd probably move on to the next listing, because that doesn't seem particularly relevant to me. So again, this is where using your keywords really wisely is essential to making sure you get your message across. And you want to get keywords that are really strong and relevant to your audience. And another method is to use what's known as long tail keywords. And this is taking several of your keywords together. And so instead of saying, you know, it's a credit company, it might be we offer, you know, low doc credits or something along those lines. And one of the really good advantages with doing it this way is people who are closer to making a purchase decision tend to use more specific phrases. So if you can use those specific phrases that your consumers who are closer to buying might use, you may not get as much traffic coming through onto the site, but you're likely to get a much higher conversion rate because it's appealing to somebody who's more inclined to make that decision. So in contrast, I've taken the meta tag from my business. So you can see up there I've got my name, I've got what I do, the areas I service, I've got a bit of a description about, you know, what I actually do. And if somebody's not familiar with the term copywriter, I've got on here that it's written in online communication for business. So if somebody's typing those sorts of terms into Google or Bing, this will come up and they will see that. So I've given them a reason to click through to my site rather than just having my site there and hoping that they will. And again, giving Google the right keywords for them to identify what I'm offering, so when they're looking for somebody to match with that search, those terms are coming up and relevant. And again, like Sally was saying earlier, it does take time for these things to move up in rankings. So, you know, if you do change your keywords, it's not going to be the next day you're up the top of Google, but, you know, keep monitoring it and checking how you're going. If you need to tweak it, you know, that way you'll know if you keep gauging stuff, so keep an eye on it. Again, as Sally was saying earlier, it's not about you, it's about your consumer, and we see a lot of websites that are really heavily focused on we do this, we do that, this is who we are. You want to shift your focus to your consumers and what their needs are and how you can actually help them and meet their needs, because that's why people are online looking for you. So I've got an example here. If you're looking for a plumber, Are you sort of interested in hearing about his family-owned business and how it's owned by Grandad and, you know, the fantastic building that they're in that they've been for 100 years? Or would you rather hear about how soon you can be there to fix your overflowing toilet before your dinner guests arrive? Now, I know what I'd prefer. And there's certainly a place for you to talk about your business and your service and if you've got that history or any of those sorts of elements, but it doesn't really belong on your home page. That should probably go to your About page. And even that should still be focused towards what you're offering the consumers as opposed to just talking about yourself. Emotion is really strong. Again, as we saw in the video with the blind man, it's making that emotional connection with people, and there's several different emotions that are commonly used. Fear is one that we see quite effectively used throughout different mediums. One of the ones we see are like the bacterial sprays and things where mum's wiping the bench with the chicken leg and, you know, if you don't use this your child's going to die from E. coli. It can be a really strong motivator and work really well if it's used well. If it's not used well, not so good. Nostalgia is another really good one. It takes people back to a simpler time, and people tend to view the past with rose-coloured glasses and feel a bit sentimental, and it's nice to build those connections. And the Commonwealth Bank's been using that one a lot in their advertising with the very stylistic black and white and the music that they're using. Giving people a sense of belonging, so making that they feel part of a group or part of, you know, a family or whatever you want to tie that in as. So whether that's loyalty programs, whether it's a gym membership and everybody's friends or whatever, that sense of belonging is a really strong motivator. And one of my favourites, of course, is humour. And when people are sort of engaged and having a bit of a laugh, it lets their guard down. And once their guard's down, it's a lot easier to get your message across. And I mean, we all enjoy having a good laugh and feeling good about things. And if you can create that positive connection to your brand through humour, already, you know, you're ahead of the crowd. As Sally touched on again, we've got to really pay attention to layout and readability, because even the most brilliant copy will be completely ineffective if people can't physically read it. Particularly when you're reading online, it's very hard to focus on the screen for a long time, so you really want to make it as easy as possible for people to read on screen. So some of the things that you might have seen that really should be avoided are things like really harshly contrasted text on the screen, and we commonly see a lot of sites with black backgrounds and white text, and it's a really nice look, and I've got nothing against it, and I think a way to make that work and keep that look is to perhaps just use a dark grey background and a pale grey text, and it still achieves that look but doesn't sort of make your eyes bleed. Large blocks of text, again, it's really hard to keep your place on screen when you're having to read big chunks of text. So break it up with headers and subheaders, and that's another really great way to introduce some more of your keywords into your headers as well. And once you've got those smaller passages of text that are a couple of sentences long, people actually read more because they tend to skim down through. So instead of reading the first 2 lines of a huge block of text, they're going to read the first 2 lines of every block if your content keeps them engaged. So again, it keeps people reading and it makes it easier to read. Centre text is another one that has some issues. I'm not sure if people use it because they like that it looks sort of centred on the page and it looks tidy. But what happens is every time you go to the new line, you're having to sort of stop and find where that new line starts, and it can be quite interruptive to the flow. So for that nice uniform look, it's good to do a full justification of your text, and that keeps it looking nice and tidy but makes it easier to read. And little teeny tiny fonts. Unfortunately, there's not too many sites that do this, but again, depending on what sort of font you're using, make sure you're using a 12 to 14 point size, because while people can zoom up the page, it's a hassle and they're not going to do it, they're just going to move on. So again, it's these little issues that just really help make people stay on your site. The benefits versus the features. Now, features, again, a little more than a technical description. It doesn't really offer very much, and unless you're sort of comparing for like mobile phones or TVs or something along those lines where you actually want that technical specifications to measure against, they can be pretty boring. Benefits, on the other hand, are all about the appeal. So it is what makes your product or your service really beneficial to the customer and why their life is better for having that product or service in their life and why they should buy it. So to demonstrate the difference, if we look at the features of, say, a Stanley knife, we can say it's got a sturdy, bright coloured handle, made of resilient rubber, and it's retractable and refillable. I mean, you've described it, you can see it. There's nothing much more to it. On the other hand, if you look at the benefits, you might say the bright colour makes it really easy to find amongst all your other tools, so immediately you're saving time. The resilient handle makes it hard wearing, so it's going to last longer. You're not going to have to purchase it again so soon, saves you money. The rubber handle makes it, comfortable. It's easy to use. It's easy to control. It's probably going to be safer because you're not slipping, and the blade's retractable obviously and replaceable, so again it's safer, it's adding value. So all of a sudden, instead of just describing a product, you've given people a whole raft of reasons as to why this product is better than the other. So again, don't just present the facts, give people a reason. So whether it's saving time, saving money, making people feel secure or confident or attractive or whatever, you need to really solve people's problems with your product, and that's what selling the benefits is all about.